Each year on Rosh HaShanah, I select a single word for our consideration and contemplation. This year's word of the year is happiness. Happiness is a universal emotion at the core of the human spirit, and something we each strive to achieve. Everyone knows what happiness feels like. Try for a moment just to connect with a very happy feeling, something that would make you exceedingly happy, a memory, perhaps snuggling with a wonderful little puppy or a kitten. Perhaps it was falling in love, perhaps the birth of a child, or the unsolicited hug or kiss from a grandchild. Happiness is one of the most powerful, compelling feelings in life, and the human hunger for happiness is boundless. If we could be happy every moment of every day, we would be. And for this reason, human history has been shaped in part by an ongoing quest for happiness. Now, our challenge, at least as adults, is that life simply gets in the way. Would that we could bounce from joy to joy to joy, like my 5-year-old son. But the truth is, as we age, the stresses of life, the distractions of work, the frustrations of things like traffic, the pains of loss and illness, all of these realities become the broader context of our everyday existence. And happiness, as we once knew it as children, comes and goes in spurts and spats. For this reason, there are endless philosophies and strategies on ways of maintaining happiness in life. Ultimately, however, what it is to be happy is different for each of us and can change in an instant. A dear friend of the family owns several businesses. His successes have brought him a great sense of personal wealth, as well as pride, as well as inner satisfaction. Lately, the challenges of managing these businesses have become an all-consuming and highly stressful endeavor. It was bringing him down. A few weeks ago, his entire perspective on the meaning of personal happiness changed when his 12-year-old son had to undergo a life-saving surgery where they inserted a metal rod into his chest cavity, flipped it up to move his rib cage away from his heart to protect the heart. After an extremely complicated 6-hour procedure and 5 days of recovery, our friend turns to my brother Marty, who happened to be visiting the boy in the hospital, and says, "There are moments in life when happiness is black and white. This is such a moment. My son has turned the corner, and all of my fears have been absolved." Our friend is correct. Happiness, by nature, is an emotion that is often defined in very clear black and white terms in the moment. In a moment of complete elation, nothing else really seems to matter. It is also true that happiness fades. It comes in waves. It can be fleeting and elusive. And herein lies the heart of my message this morning. When it comes to happiness, we live in a reality where we long for a feeling that flees all too quickly. So I'm asking today, how do we hold on to happiness? What can we do to maintain and nurture this beautiful, uplifting emotion in order to feel it longer and with greater consistency? Let's start with the science. As it is with every emotion, the epicenter is the brain. In every in the case of happiness, the prefrontal cortex of the frontal lobe is where a lot of our happy feelings take place. This area plays a major role in our feelings. So why is this important? It is important because this is the area of the brain where we simulate and imagine our experiences. As human beings, we have the unique ability to imagine reality before it actually takes place. And this is part of why happiness is so elusive. Now, the science of happiness and the science of this brain chemistry is extremely complex, and there's a lot of research out there that you can tap into. And if I go into it, I can promise you that you would not be happy with the length of my sermon. But there is one thing that I want to draw your attention to, which is extremely important. And that is because the brain is hardwired to anticipate and create expectations regarding happy experiences, it is simultaneously hardwired for disappointment when the situation doesn't line up with our preconceptions. Researchers are learning more and more all the time about what it means to be happy, what makes us happy, and why. While science may be able to help us better understand these feelings of contentment, our values as a society plays a major role as well. As Americans, we are blessed to be living in a country that recognizes the central importance of the right of human beings to happiness. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In the creation of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson and our forefathers were well aware that the human desire for the pursuit of happiness was not only a basic human instinct, but a human right as worthy of governmental protection as the right to life itself. Indeed, the desire for happiness is central to being human. We all want to be happy, and we are all constantly chasing after it. Self-help seminars and self-improvement programs, including books and diets and videos and even apps, constitute an industry that brings in more than $10 billion a year. But happiness cannot be packaged for mass distribution. In his book, The Antidote, Happiness for People Who Can't Stand Positive Thinking, it's a book I recommend to all the cynics out there, Oliver Burkeman harshly criticizes the happiness industry, arguing that the one-size-fits-all strategy for personal fulfillment needs to be rejected. Burkeman argues that this constant pursuit of happiness is part of the problem in the first place. He contends that there is no quick path to happiness, and that the pursuit of happiness contributes significantly to our general discontent. In short, the more we want what we do not have, the less likely we are to be content with that which we do have. Burkeman suggests that the most effective way to sustain a sense of inner tranquility — he doesn't really like the word happiness at all — is to stop allowing the external world to affect us so much. In times of adversity, we tend to externalize our sources of discontent. A simple moment of conflict, for example, might weigh heavily on our shoulders, or keep us up at night, or trouble us for days. And as we stew with this angst or these feelings of disconnection to whatever it is that is bothering us, we commonly blame this discontent on either others or the situation at hand. Berkman argues that ongoing personal contentment depends a great deal on how we deal with what life will throw our way. A young woman went to her grandmother for some advice. Life had been bringing her down. Nothing seemed to be going right. The weight of the world was on her, and she just couldn't get out of the rut. She tells her grandmother her story, and her grandmother quietly takes her to the kitchen. She brings out 3 pots, fills them with water, puts them onto the stove, then places in one of the pots a carrot. One of the pots she places an egg, and the third pot she pours in some coffee grounds. Her granddaughter looks at her and says, "What is this about, Grandma?" She goes, "Shh." She then turns up the heat, and for 20 minutes lets each of these pots boil. 20 minutes later, she brings her granddaughter back into the kitchen. She ladles out the carrot and places it in a bowl. She ladles out the egg and places it in a bowl. And then she carefully pours some of the brewed coffee into a mug. "Grandma, what is this about?" She tells her granddaughter, "Put your finger into the carrot." So her granddaughter pushes into a mushy orange mash. She said, "Very good. Now, crack open the egg." And her granddaughter cracks it open, and of course she peels off the shell, and inside is a hard-boiled egg. She says, "Now take a sip of that mug of coffee." And so the granddaughter smells that rich aroma, takes a sip of the delicious coffee, and smiles. The grandmother then explains, each of these objects have had to face the same adversity, boiling water. And each of these objects respond differently. The carrot went in strong and hard and unrelenting. However, after bringing this carrot to boil, it changed. It became soft and weak. The egg was fragile, a shell protecting a liquid interior. And after it sat in that boiling water, it became hardened. The coffee beans were unique, however. They did not allow the water to change them. After they were boiled, they changed the water. I would venture to guess that a vast majority of us are like eggs and carrots. When things don't go our way, when the stresses of life heat up, we often soften with apprehension or harden our hearts to avoid hurt or disappointment. Both of these dispositions can limit our capacity to remain fully present as we become affected by the external pressures of the world. Perhaps we need to be a little bit more like coffee beans and find ways to change the water when the pressures of life heat up. Most of us tend to think of this distress response as a one-step process. Something unpleasant happens, and then we have an emotional reaction to that stressor. A distress happens in our life. But the fact is that it's a two-way process between the outside event, which is stressing us, which is causing us this angst, and the internal response that we have to it. There is a belief or an expectation or a need or a value. And each of these function as a filter. In theory, if we can monitor that internal filter, we can maximize our capacity for happiness. In Judaism, the process of monitoring this internal filter begins by nurturing an ongoing understanding that happiness is a mindset, not a destination. We recognize that happiness may be elusive and momentary, but we also recognize that the capacity to be happy and our capacity to feel happiness is a God-given gift. This universal human tendency may indeed be to melt in the heat of adversity, because we are indeed very much like the carrot and the egg. And so Judaism has its response. Our faith promotes a beautiful strategy that can be employed every moment of every day if we so choose. It is a strategy involving appreciation and ongoing recognition of the blessings in our lives. It is a strategy that nurtures a mindset that treasures that which we have and strongly discourages us for the pursuit of that which we do not. It is a strategy that embraces feelings of joy and contentment and celebrates those feelings the moment we experience them. Our tradition strives to nurture a sense that everything we have in life is a gift for which we should be thankful. Expressions of gratitude, in whatever form they may take, help us to minimize the brain's expectations and help us to maximize our capacity to feel content with what we have and what we encounter. Our tradition instructs us to say at least 100 blessings a day. And to make sure that we are not lacking for words, there is literally a blessing written for every single thing you might be able to imagine in life. There is a blessing when we go to sleep at night, a blessing when we wake up in the morning. There is a blessing for the things that we eat, a blessing for grapes, a blessing for cookies, a blessing for bread. There is a blessing for different drinks. There is a blessing when we go to the bathroom. There is a blessing when we wash our hands. There is a blessing when we hear thunder or see lightning or see a rainbow. Our faith is blessing obsessed. But as blessing as obsessed as it may be, it is there that way for a reason. Our faith tries through blessings to help teach us that happiness and appreciation are inextricably linked. Life is a gift. Nothing is a given. Nothing should ever be taken for granted. Life as we know it, life as we love it, can change in an instant. Our health, the health of our friends and loved ones, our financial security, our job security, our relationships, everything we cherish in life must be counted as a blessing. For as long as we see things in our lives as extraordinary, there is reason for celebration. As long as we remain enthusiastic for what we have and refrain from the desire of possessions of others, we can maintain a sense of inner satisfaction and contentment. As long as we cherish the time that we have with those in our lives, instead of looking ahead at what may be or what's to come, we can maintain a sense of happiness in the moment. Our lives, of course, will be peppered with moments, many moments, of disappointment and sorrow, anger and frustration. But paying attention to what we have and giving thanks to God for those gifts helps us maintain awareness of the joys which are ours to share. Do these blessings need to be in that traditional form? Of course not. For example, we can recognize everything from the mundane to the most sacred in our lives with blessings from our heart. We may be stuck in traffic, knowing that just up up ahead there was an accident. And rather than becoming consumed with frustration and angst that we're going to be late for whatever it is we're heading to, we can say a quiet blessing in our heart. Thank God I am not caught in that accident. We may bite into a crisp, snappy apple and think to ourselves, oh, this is so good, and rejoice in that moment. Thank God for apples, or avocados, even better. We may be in those moments with our family and say a prayer every day of our lives. Thank you, God, for my wife who's so supportive. Thank you for 4 amazing children who bless me every day with the joys of parenthood. Thank you for a life which is so rich, shared, even though it's in a divorced context where everyone plays a role in the raising of children and blesses everyone with love and support. Or perhaps in the office, thank you, God, for my computer that goes on and works. Thank you, God, for an office staff that makes this place not only work but shine, to serve a congregation that is so appreciative, a congregation that's a community. All of these things are blessings that I just made up on the spot, that is from the heart, that each of us can do every day. For when we recognize the blessings in our lives in the moment, whether it's something as mundane as a crisp apple or the blessings of our health, every moment we recognize and appreciate those things in our lives, we feel good. And that's what blessings do. They help us connect to the moment. And the more moments we celebrate, the more joy we feel, the more we can set that mindset of appreciation and happiness in our lives. So during the next 10 days, I'd like to challenge all of us to try to celebrate the spectrum of emotions we have, all of the experiences in front of us, from the most mundane to the most sacred. Remind ourselves every moment we can how blessed we are, regardless of how you might express those blessings, in the traditional form or a silent prayer in one's mind. We have so much for which to be grateful. And when we do this, may each of us find that we not only have many blessings to rejoice in and count, but that the act itself of recognizing and celebrating these gifts might just expand our capacity to prolong happiness and inner contentment in our lives as well. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be so.